Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. All right, already today here on the Gaggle, I've talked to Dmitry Babich and Daniel McAdams. Now we have Vladimir Golstein, academic and a keen observer of Western politics because he was born in the Soviet Union and immigrated to the United States. And so you have a very particular view here. Number one, let's talk about media reaction to this story. This seems so familiar to me, if you know what I mean. We've seen this movie before. It just has a different actor. Go ahead.
Yeah, it looks like ordained, organized, pre-arranged setup. And when I hear this kind of absolutely unified response in media, British press, some Russian liberal press, English press, I remember this wonderful scene from Bulgakov's Master and Margarita, where he mocks certain kind of abuses during Stalin's time. He said, the characters go into the building, and out of the blue, people in this building began to sing the song. And they began to sing the song in unison as if they are directed by some invisible sort of conductor. And I feel the same thing. I don't know who the hell is this invisible conductor, but it's like, absolutely, here's some bold statement from Democratic Party. Here's a bold statement from this. It all works in the unison. Navalny is an enemy of Putin. Ergo, Putin has something to do with it. Novichok is a Russian weapon. Ergo, it has to be. And it's just going on and on. Nobody there's no voices, who would question it, challenge it as absolutely reasonable question, not even loaded question, reasonable questions. Where is Novichok coming from? Who benefits from that? Who can be involved? Where's the proof that it was Novichok? Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it is an echo of this Skripal affair, because in the forensic evidence that the British government claimed that they had, they refused to show it, as far as I know, to anyone, and certainly not to the Russian government. And the Russian government this time has actually made this same request. Can you show us what you have? I mean, it really defies any kind of common sense that if the government of Russia poisoned a marginal opposition figure with a deadly toxin, nobody else got infected, and no one in Germany would find out if they went there. So this is such a miraculous toxin that, well, it doesn't actually kill very many people, but it somehow disappears or reappears or transmutates. I mean, what happens is that when you're given the lack of evidence, what happens is, with common sense and reasonable people, is that you start trying to draw conclusions, okay? And I'm trying to understand what the purpose of this was. Who gains? Number one, Russia does not gain. That is for sure, okay? Who does gain? Who benefits here? Well, I suppose it's to give some kind of boost to the Russian opposition that has been in decline ever since the Ukraine saga, the Crimea saga. And Navalny himself is even more of a marginalized figure. Now he's back in the news. Is that the point of all of this? Is it to rally the troops in NATO, remind everyone how important NATO is? Is it about energy politics here? See, the more you think about it, the more there are different layers there to try to understand. Because the primary story that they're pushing is that Navalny is a threat to Putin is utter nonsense, anyone that knows something about Russian politics. So who benefits?
I think it's a fascinating subject. But I think that, as you suggested, this is a situation where a lot of enemies of Russia and the Russian energy policy, Russian foreign policy, they clearly benefit. One sort of elephant in the room is definitely this Nord Stream 2. Yep. So it's very kind of peculiar that of all countries, whether it's, I don't know, there are a lot of neutral countries. After all, if, there are a lot of decent countries would have sort of good medicine, maybe they should have tried some other country. For some reason, he flies to Germany, precisely when, for the last several years, Germany was epicenter of this anti-Nord Stream, pro-Nord Stream policy. And we know, there is no doubt about it, this is one of the keystones of State Department policy, somehow to prevent Russia to sell its energy resources outside surrounding Ukraine. Because basically what we do know that while the gas and oil goes through Ukraine, Ukraine can control many levels Russia. They can steal these things. So that's the source of their income. So if and when Russia would build it around it, Ukraine actually would lose its all geopolitical relevance. And we know that Ukraine was one of the kind of fundamental sort of another kind of issues of recent foreign policy. So they have to be staying afloat. So I think that's what one issue. Another issue is also very important, and I remember, I think, I published this article 6 years ago about that Ukraine is one of the wedges which the NATO needs to sort of to drive between Russia and Germany. We remember that origins of NATO was to sort of to keep Russia out and Germany down. If we have this new energy policy, if we have a Russian-German cooperation, and this Russian-German cooperation was in the making for the last 200 years, but every time, for Second World War, Brits have to organize something. So this is like old geopolitical issues. So this is a wonderful case, again, to drive this wedge between Russia and Germany and to bring this. And it's very sad, definitely very sad. I would add one more thing in terms of, this case exhibits absolutely classic case of Russophobia. Any kind of hatred of any group, anti-Jews, anti-blacks, anti-Russians, they always suggest two things. One, this group is very strong. Another one is this group is weak. Because you don't pick up on absolutely strong. So Russia, now they're devious and they can operate elections. Now they are so stupid and so incompetent, they cannot poison some kind of opponent on their own territory. Or if they try to do that, they use the trap. I mean, this actually, from the perspective of any rational person, it doesn't square. But it does square. Somehow kind of, Jews are all powerful, Jews are dirty little bastards. So that's the type of argument which you use all the time. So like this somehow kind of this strange logic appeals to all haters, and we see the classic signs of it here.
Psychosis. When you're suffering a psychosis, you can have contradictory things existing at the same time. I mean, because that's one of the definitions of this malady, is that logic checks out. It's taken off the board because these things, because there are known knowns and known unknowables, and this is what terrifies people. This goes really very much part of the Russophobia, and particularly on the Russiagate. The fear of knowing what you don't know. This is, and what this does is, Russiagate and this particular, the Skripals, and now with Navalny, what I find very interesting is that it keeps the political class together. It is the cement, the glue, because they may have their differences over this and that, but overall we have the same enemy, and it works very well for the people in the ruling class because the status quo is what they want to maintain, and they are the great defenders and guardians of the system here, which of course Russia is a threat to, which is never, that case has never been made. You know why? Because you can't make it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think, what we have here is like, I agree with the continuation of the establishment policy. And establishment policy after the collapse of this kind of Soviet Union, they needed some kind of a glue. When there was like Soviet Union, Warsaw Pact, it was there. The glue
it was real.
Yeah, the glue would have kept, and there was some logic to that, the West, NATO, blah, blah, blah. Now the whole thing sort of the collapse, of Soviet Union began to dissipate. So basically, if you think about it, there is no reason for NATO. There is no reason for this kind of U.S. dominance. There is, here and there. There is a very serious, strong case about EU joining with Russia and providing this very strong European bloc, which will be a danger again, to the United States as a trader bloc. So therefore, to continue this Cold War policies, Russia needs to be bad, and it needs to do some sort of, things, with the psychotic things, which show that they are, sometimes they're dangerous and strong, but also they're so sloppy. There's all indicators it's there behind it, and that's so it will continue again. There's some invisible, this invisible conductor is this Washington consensus. which want to keep Cold War policies established. They feed military-industrial complex. They feed NATO. They feed U.S. dominance over Europe. They feed this kind of fear, British fear of kind of Russia-German alliance. So I think it's until it goes on, until rulers in the West decide to change it, we'll see more Skripals and more Navalny's and more Novichoks.
Yeah, there was that famous saying, for the reason for to back the existence and continuation of NATO was to keep the Americans in, the Germans down, and the Russians out. But that was because the Soviet Union was communist. It was based on an ideology. Now we know that was all a lie. It was all about geopolitical advantage. And this is the biggest problem. We'll end on this here, is that without this ideology, communism, I would say it is the West that gets really sloppy with these ridiculous machinations. But having said that, they are planned and executed for public opinion consumption. And I think that that's why I will agree with you. We're going to see more of these things here. Last word to you.
Yeah, I think what is also important while the West is engaged in this Russophobia, they obviously, in trying to continue with the status quo, they basically miss spectacular rise of China. Here's another elephant in the room, but they're so much busy continuing with this model, while basically the 21st century requires new thinking. I'm not saying that Russia should be an ally of the West, but every country have to rethink their strategic geopolitical position. But the West was caught totally with their pants down vis-a-vis China. They still don't understand it. That out of the blue, this country began to dominate everything. So they don't know. So again, they retreat to the familiar rather than just dealing with a new reality.
Yeah, well, the thing is that so many careers have been made on this. A lot of people don't want to change. Hey, the gravy train and the grift has been great. Let's hang on just one more time. And as you said, the world is changing dramatically. The rise of China, de-dollarization, these are real issues here that are affecting the world economy and geopolitics. But nobody in Washington seems to understand or even care. Vladimir, thank you for joining the gaggle here. It was fascinating. We're going to keep an eye on the story, and we'll see you soon. And remember to like, share, and subscribe.
Thank you. Bye.